first instance, I would like to thank Quest Academy for organizing such a wonderful and positive, optimistic, online, fun in learning kind of competition amid this pandemic situation. Namaskaram, this is Rohit Apadia from Dr. Vaisham Payan Memorial Government Medical College, Solapur. Why am I participating in this online fun in learning competition? Because I believe that where there is integration of concepts, there is key to the door of intelligence. Where there is key to the door of intelligence, there is application of knowledge. Where there is application of knowledge, there is synchrony in the treatment. When there is synchrony in the treatment, there is fitness of the patient. When there is fitness of the patient, there is well-being in the society. And when there is a well-being in the society, there is progress of the nation. This is the sole attempt that I am doing this video patient-centrically so that some undergraduate student who watches it uses it directly or indirectly and the patient gets benefited. Now, this concept of learning is far different, which we are going to learn in this video. Because I believe that if we read and write, we will understand it. When we put it into points, we will recall it. When we teach someone, we will be best at it. But once we are done practically, when we do it practically, we will never forget it. So, this fun in learning, let's enjoy. Given to me, that is drug therapy in Parkinson's disease, is a kind of topic which requires horizontal and vertical integration of concepts from the different subjects of medical sciences, which is one of the fundamental points of the new curriculum of MCI 2019. Because a patient is not going to present to us as a cadaver or an isolated unit or as pathological specimens. We have to work with integrated knowledge of all the subjects of medical sciences, and now, so we will move towards the basics, because if we want a solution for some problem, we need to study the problem completely. And one basic thing, what we know, that anatomy, physiology and biochemistry is all about what medical sciences is. Rest all is just the alteration in these normalities. The anatomical basis, what we are going to need for Parkinson's disease is, as we know that there is deficiency of dopamine. Now, dopamine is secreted by the substantia nigra, which is in the midbrain. So this diagram on your screen, what you can see is the cut section of the midbrain, where you can see the black bands which depict the substantia nigra. Now, this means literally black substance. This is on the anterior aspect. So, anterior to the substantia nigra is the crus cerebri, and posterior to the substantia nigra is the tegmentum, and behind that, posterior to that, is the tectum. Now, substantia nigra is one of the essential components of the basal nuclei, actually called as basal ganglia, which is a misnomer. So, basal nuclei are the components. Next diagram which you can see on the screen is the coronal section. So, I'll give you an an orientation of how a coronal section is. Like, this is a cauliflower at my place, and this is the brain, right? This is the brain. So, when you take this is like this. When you take a coronal section, you are anteriorly looking to the person. This goes away, and what you are going to see, what you are seeing on this screen is this on your screen. So here you find out the caudate nucleus, you see the lentiform nucleus. Of course, for the landmark you also see the internal capsule, and this caudate nucleus and the lentiform nucleus form the important role in the direct and indirect pathways of the dopamine pathway. From the pictorial presentation of the basal ganglia in the diagram, we saw that it has caudate nucleus and the lentiform nucleus. So simply we can remember that basal nuclei is the grandfather, and caudate nucleus and the lentiform nucleus, this whole part, they are the two sons. Now this caudate nucleus is alone, and this lentiform nucleus has two more sons, that is putamen and globus pallidus. Now globus pallidus has two parts, externus and internus. But this globus pallidus is the efferent part, that is efferent part of this system, and this corpus striatum, that is putamen and caudate nuclei, they form the afferent part of this system. To make it fancy and practical, I have made an analogy with the vegetables and fruits available at my home so that we can remember it practically. So this potato is the caudate nucleus, as you can see the analogy. Then this is the subthalamic nuclei, and this is the substantia nigra, and these are the lentiform nuclei, that is globus pallidus and the putamen. Now, these are the afferent, these are the efferent, and this is the what is playing role in the background. Physiologically, dopamine acts by two pathways, direct and indirect pathway. The action of direct pathway is because of D1 receptors, and action of indirect pathway is because of D2 receptors. Now, D1 receptors and D2 receptors are activated by the dopamine secreted by the substantia nigra, which is carried by the different pathways, which we have discussed further. Now, when dopamine is not secreted because of some pathological cause, that is nothing but Parkinson's disease, this does not happen. Now, role of the first pathway, that is direct pathway, is coordinating the action, what is happening, causing the action and its coordination. And indirect pathway, it avoids the excessive and the unwanted action. Like at rest, we don't have tremors. But this happens when the deficiency is there, when the pathology, that is antonym of this physiology, occurs. So normally it is maintaining the normal tone, muscle tone of the body, and excessive actions are prevented. But when there is clinical feature of Parkinson, at that time we see that if I want to pick up this cup and saucer, what will happen? Either my hand will be short enough or it will move towards away and forward from this cup and saucer. It will not go to this and this direct action will not happen. As a result, we can simply define the three major clinical features which form the hallmark, that is resting tremors, second is the muscular rigidity, and the bradykinesia. So action, muscle tone is completely decreased when action is there, when action is done, because there's stiffness. So it takes a long time to have the action and withdraw the action. And so this happens. And shuffle gait. So this way, the shuffle gait, when the man stands, it becomes like this. It cannot stand stable. Shuffle gait is seen. So this is the clinical feature, what is the antonym of the normal physiology. And one more thing is mask-like, face-like appearance. This happens because of all this. This is the direct pathway, which is happening with excitatory and inhibitory impulses. Excitatory will be shown by the green chili and inhibitory with the red chili. Now, when the thought appears in the sensory cortex, at that time, it will stimulate the striatum. Striatum is nothing but the caudate nucleus and the putamen nucleus. Now, once the cortex, sensory cortex stimulates the striatum, striatum will inhibit globus pallidus internus, and globus pallidus internus inhibits the thalamus. Now, what will happen? The action of globus pallidus internus is to inhibit thalamus. But when this action is inhibited by the striatum, so this action does not happen, and as a result, because of no inhibition, action will happen. That is, thalamus will pass excitatory impulses to the cortex. But how this happens? With the help of substantia nigra, how it plays a role in the background, let's see. So substantia nigra, it excites this action of striatum, which is inhibition of the globus pallidus internus. So substantia nigra will stimulate this action of inhibition. So this inhibition increases, as a result of which this inhibition decreases, and so thalamus is excited and action happens. Indirect pathway is the pathway which avoids the extra actions. Like if you want to take a cup of tea, you don't go forward. You don't come back, you don't go forward, you take it at the position. This is because of this inhibition mechanism, which is by indirect pathway. Now, what happens? Thalamus is a naughty fellow. It has to be pried upon, kept a check upon by the whole system, by the indirect pathway. Thalamus keeps on giving excitatory stimuli to cortex. Now, to control this thalamus, the whole indirect pathway occurs as the substantia nigra. When it gets stimulated during the direct pathway, as we saw, it stimulates the D1 receptors in the striatum and does its job. Now, here to control the activity, substantia nigra releases dopamine and it stimulates the D2 receptor as this way, and now this striatum, it will inhibit the external globus pallidus, that is globus pallidus externus, this way. Now, this globus pallidus externus, it has an inhibitory action on the subthalamic nuclei. So what happens? This stimulus, it will strengthen this inhibition action of striatum on the globus pallidus externus. So this inhibition will decrease because it's already inhibited. Now this inhibition is decreased. It means what? Subthalamic nuclei is not getting inhibited. Now, so whatever is the action of the subthalamic nuclei will increase. The action of subthalamic nuclei is to stimulate the globus pallidus internus. So it will stimulate because this inhibition has been inhibited already by the striatum. So this will increase the stimulation towards the globus pallidus internus. And as we already saw in the direct pathway, that action of globus pallidus internus is to inhibit thalamus, as of which it will have a control on the thalamus, and this way the indirect pathway controls the excessive excitatory impulses to the cortex and prevents overaction. Till now we have seen what is the effect of the pathology. Now let's see what is the pathology. Pathology can be majorly divided into the Parkinsonism, the atypical Parkinsonism, secondary Parkinsonism, and with Parkinson with other neurodegenerative diseases. Now Parkinsonism, the first type, it has genetic, sporadic, and Levy body, dementia with Levy body formation. Now Levy body, which you can see on the HPR slide on the screen, this is because of alpha-synuclein fibrils, which are formed because of alpha-synuclein gene. Now, genetic causes are 1 to 16, PARC 1 to PARC 16. Different chromosomes are responsible for the same. Now, atypical has different complex disorders, including the multiple system atrophy, progressive supranuclear palsy, cortico-basal ganglionic degeneration, and frontotemporal dementia. The secondary Parkinsonism, what you can see, is because of mainly the drug-induced one, toxin-induced one. It can be also due to tumor, trauma, infections, etc. Now, mainly the neuroleptic drugs, especially the metclopramide and the chlorpromazine, which we use in the GIT, primarily in the GIT disorders, these are neuroleptics. And the other neurodegenerative disorders with which the Parkinson presentation can happen is the Wilson's disease, Huntington's disease, and Alzheimer's disease, etc. One thing which is extremely clear from the pathology is that dopamine level decreases, and because of which all the clinical manifestation happens. So simply, what can be the line of treatment is either you increase the dopamine levels or the precursor dopamine levels in the body, or you decrease the catabolism. So let's know the normal anabolism and catabolism of dopamine. Now dopamine is formed from the tyrosine amino acid. Now tyrosine is hydroxylized by an enzyme, that is OH group is added and it forms DOPA. This DOPA is the precursor which we use in the treatment line. The DOPA is dihydroxyphenylalanine, and this is further decarboxylated to form dopamine. That is COH group is removed. Now dopamine is further metabolized into norepinephrine and epinephrine, which is further with the help of enzymes COMT, that is COM, and MAO-B enzyme, it is forming the homovanillic acid. So inhibitors of these enzymes can lead to increase of the levels, that is by decreasing of the catabolism. The biochemistry, we saw the metabolism and we got an idea that what would be the line of treatment. Now let us see the most common classification followed for the drug therapy of anti-Parkinsonism. Now if you see, we have to use dopamine precursors or peripheral decarboxylers so that we have more and more dopamine. So among the dopamine precursors, we have the levodopa, which is the most commonly used drug. Peripheral decarboxylase, we have the carbidopa and benserazide. Now dopaminergic direct agonists, direct D2 agonists, there could be bromocriptine and ropinirole. MAO-B inhibitors and COMT inhibitors, the MAO-B inhibitors are selegiline and rasagiline, and the COMT inhibitors are tolcapine and entacapine. Now direct dopamine facilitator through the glutamate is the amantadine, which is actually an antimicrobial, but positive effects in this aspect have been seen. Now one important thing is striatum is acted upon both by cholinergics and the dopamine. Now cholinergics is they maintain the balance. So when dopamine levels decrease, cholinergics have hyperaction, and so to control these actions we have anticholinergics that we use. Now this could be central or antihistaminic. Central anticholinergic drugs like benzhexol are the most common used, and antihistaminics like promethazine can also be used. We add this with the normal main treatment therapy, that is levodopa, carbidopa, which is the most commonly used, which we discussed. The most common drugs used along with their dosages are mentioned on the blackboard. Now the most common drug used is levodopa, that is the precursor form of dopamine. Now, but even after the administration of this drug, when the patient comes for a follow-up, he will say, "Doctor, I have dyskinesia," even after the drug is administered. This is because of the on and off phenomena, just like the switch button of our electrical gadget. This is that when the drug level in the blood is there, it has its action. Once it's metabolized, it's gone. The effect is gone, and as a result, the patient will have those signs and symptoms again. Now, this can be resolved by using sustained formulations, and FDC, that is fixed dose combination approved by the WHO of levodopa and carbidopa in the ratio of 10:1 most followed or 4:1 is used, and it has a sustained release kind of action in the form of those tablets. And this is most used because there is increased bioavailability of the drug, and so the dose of levodopa decreases by almost 75%, and half-life of the drug prolongs. The compliance of the patient is better. The side effects such as the GI symptoms like the nausea, vomiting and anorexia are decreased, and serious symptoms like the arrhythmias, which are usually rare, postural hypertension, which is one of them commonly seen, and the palpitations that are seen, these are all reduced by such kind of formulation, and so sustained release formulations and this kind of FDC is far more better. Every pharmaceutical drug which is used, may it be the over-count drugs to the rarely used drugs, everyone has a side effect. But when there's a naturally available alternative present, that too, which is proven beyond doubt through trials, etc., we will definitely go for it. In the quest for finding new drugs in this anti-Parkinsonism list, I was going through and I came across a drug which is naturally formed, which has levodopa by its nature. It is the Mucuna pruriens seed extraction. It has levodopa naturally, and this research was done in Africa, but then it is linked with the US National Library of Medicine, and the article is present there. Now, the features of this is that it is first of all cost effective and so available easily in the local markets. Second, and third thing is that it was a double-blind randomized controlled trial, so far more proven. It had 6 different classes. This Mucuna pruriens seed extraction is called as MP extraction. So 6 different classes were the levodopa from the market, levodopa and the decarboxylase like carbidopa. Second was low dose of MP extraction, high dose of MP extraction, and third was MP extraction along with decarboxylase. And last was the control group. From these 6, the conclusions came that high dose MP extraction had far more efficient and superior results. High dose MP extraction increased motor response by 50%, and as compared to the L-dopa and decarboxylase combination, which increased the motor response only by 32%. Now, one more thing, that high dose MP extraction, it increased the mean duration of the action, the on-off phenomena, which we were facing in just L-dopa. This was increased by 25% than the action of L-dopa. 25% mean duration was increased than that of the L-dopa. And one more important point to be added is shorter latency period of the drug. That drug started acting faster, and it starts its action with as less as 100 milligrams of dose. And high doses include 500 to 1000 milligrams, that is up to 1 gram, which is absolutely safe. Apart from the pharmaceutical and naturally available drugs that we have seen as far till now, other treatment modalities could be surgical and non-pharmacological. Now, every surgical modality, it mainly has the DBS, that is deep brain stimulation. So lesions are given in the motor cortex because of which there's improvement in the patient and his presentation of the Parkinson improves. Now usually because of increased motor cortex stimulation lesions over there or pallidotomy, improvement in the tremors has been seen. But surgical modalities are far more useful to improve the quality of life in those debilitating patients who have not responded to medical therapy. I mean, it has failed and complications have occurred as a result of it. In these patients, surgical modalities they improve the quality of life. And other, like the glial-derived neurotrophic factor and the neoturin, these are the upcoming components that can be used in the therapy of Parkinson's disease. And non-pharmacological, like the exercise, the Tai-Chi physical therapy, especially that one, is far more useful. Caregivers will enhance the quality of life of the patients. Thank you once again.